Hey you guys, let's go over how we are going to make the crossback bodice of our Magnolia romper. I am doing this version with a neckband. It will have an add-on of ruffles and it will have short sleeves. So let's go over the pieces we have here. I've got one front bodice, and remember, because we are using the neckband, I cut this on the dotted line here. Okay, so we've got one piece here. This was cut on the fold, so when you open it up, looks like that. Set this aside. So we've got one front piece. We have got two opposites for our crossback piece. So we cut all the way around these. These were not cut on the fold. And we have two opposites here. You see they'll line up to create that crossback just like that. That's why we needed to cut the opposites. So you've got those two pieces. Then to go all the way around to enclose our neckline, we are using a neckband. This was cut on the fold. So it is a long piece that's going to go all the way around our neckline. Then we have two short sleeves. When I'm using my pattern pieces, I tape together. I cut these and tape them together, these lines, so that if I'm having a short sleeve, a 3/4 sleeve, and a long sleeve, that I don't have to keep 3 pieces in my pattern folder for every size. I will go ahead and just make cuts here and then put a little piece of tape here so that I can then flip and fold, so that when I'm cutting it, I cut here, flip this, and cut again. So I have two short sleeve pieces cut on the fold so that when you open them up, this is our sleeve. Got two of those. All right, and two large ruffles. These are also cut on the fold. So when you open those up, they are nice and big ruffles that are going to be so cute to adorn the edges of our sleeves, where the sleeve attaches to the shoulder. Super cute. So I'm going to set these aside for now, and let's lay out our bodice and look at the first step. So our first step is that we are going to secure our shoulder seams of our bodice. So I am going to lay the front bodice out on my mat, and then I will match up the two opposites of the back piece, lining up the arm side on each side and this top shoulder seam. So I will take this piece, and we're doing this right sides together. I'll do this piece here, get it all lined up. And you'll see that the way that this is constructed is that this goes together and then the bottom stretches all the way over to the other side seam. We'll do the same thing with our other piece. All right, so now essentially what we have all lined up is we have the bottom, the side seams, and our shoulder seams all lined up, and the arm size are the same as well. What we're gonna do here is we are going to first close our shoulder seams. So we're gonna take it over to our serger or our sewing machine. We're gonna close here and here to start. I am going to put some clips on these and we'll go ahead and close them. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and close these shoulder seams. I did clip them. We're gonna close the top shoulder seams just like you see in the picture, and then head right back to our cut mat. We wanna make sure that we are keeping both of the raw edges together because we wanna catch the full side of both sides of the fabric in our serge seam. Cotton lycra likes to roll a little bit, so this is a little trick. If you ever find your piece, did you see how mine was kind of maybe you could see that, how it's kind of rolling up on me, so that when I would put it underneath my presser foot, I was showing that it was going to be, you know, folded. So we don't want to sew it like that, obviously. So sometimes you can kind of slide, you can turn your garment to the side and slide part of it underneath your presser foot and then pull it backwards to line it up so that you've got, if you have any issues with your cotton lycra rolling, that will help fix that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close these both up real quick. Okay, so we have closed both of these shoulder seams here. And we caught the raw edge of the front and our both of our cross back bodices in that seam. So our bodice is now sewn completely together at the shoulder seams. Our next step is going to be to attach the band to our bodice. Now to do that and make sure that it gets attached evenly, what I'm gonna do is mark the midway point of the front of the bodice by making a little snip with my scissors. This is the exact center. And by little snip, I just mean that I'm gonna hold this fabric and just use my scissors to make a tiny little snip, something that is small enough just to mark the place on the fabric, but not so big that it's not gonna be covered up by our seam allowance. All right, can we see the whole thing there? Nope. Now we can. Okay, so we've got the center marked here, and now I'm gonna go ahead and grab the neckband. And this neckband is folded in half right now. And I'm just gonna take this and mark the midway points on both sides of the middle, because those are gonna match up with the midway point right here on our bodice. So I'm gonna take my scissors again and just make the tiniest little snip here and here. So now when I open up my neckband, I'm going to match up these two. I'm going to fold it over so that it can be sewn on, and I'm going to match up these two notches to make sure that it is folded in half right in the middle. And I am going to line this spot up right with this notch on our bodice. All right, now I'm gonna make sure and just fold this band piece together all the way down. And the end of our band is this is gonna follow all the way around here. And the end of our band is going to be sewn to the end of our back bodice piece. And we are gonna have to stretch this band a little bit to get it to line up the way we need to. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the other side. All right, now let's work on getting this all laid out the way we need to. What I like to do is I like to hold these 2 points and just stretch it little by little. And mark it and see how we're going here. All right, so that kind of gives us an idea of how much it needs to be stretched to be sewn on. So I like to find like another like kind of like midway point and clip it so that I know that as I'm going, I'm going to be stretching it the correct amount so that when I get to the end, I'm not going to be overstretched in any one place. I may add another clip in here just for the sake of the demo. So each clip or pin that you put in, what you need to do is lift it up and just take a look and see how the stretch looks. If it looks like, see right there, that was not a good pin, because right here it looks like it's not being stretched at all between these two, and there's a whole bunch of stretch that has to happen right here. What if you end up sewing it like that, what you're going to end up with is a wavy neckband, and that is not, and it's going to gape right here. So that's not what we want. So I'm going to move a little bit more of my band this way. Really attach this, try right here. Take a look. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's a nice little stretch there. And then from here to here, that's nice as well. Very similar amount of stretch that has to be done on our band. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark this point for us. And I will call this side complete. And let's do the same for the other side. I'm gonna need to grab a few more pins. All right, so we're just checking to make sure that all of our stretch points are pretty equal. All right, let's check this side. That looks good. That's a little more maybe. I might move this. Just a touch. Better. Okay. It's much better, and that's nice too. All right, so now that we've got this all pinned, what we are going to be doing here is serging or sewing this band to our neckline. And we are going to be stretching the band as we go. All right, let's go do that. Okay, so we are going to start at one end. We are going to sew all the way around our neckband. We are going to be enclosing all 3 raw edges in our serge seam. So we want to make sure that we're catching all 3 edges as we go all the way around. Let's do that now. And we'll just remove our pins as we go. Each time I reach a point where I have a pin, I will move back to the place where the next pin is, and I will re-stretch my band to make sure that I've got everything stretched out evenly and that it's lined up. All right? Our 2 most important things here is that we want to make sure we are lining up our 3 raw edges and that our band is stretched evenly, and that we're only stretching the band and we're not stretching our fabric as it's going through our machine, because we want it to be nice and straight and not wavy. So now that we have sewn our band on, let's look at it on the mat. Okay, so our band is all sewn on. The next step is to top stitch our band down. which basically means that we will use our sewing machine or cover stitch machine to just stitch along this edge. And what we're doing is essentially we are stitching this seam allowance here, this serge seam, we are stitching it down to the bodice of our fabric, stitching the neckline down. Okay, and we'll do that all the way around. It just helps this to lay a little bit flatter. That is an optional step, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And you're just running a straight stitch, a straight cover stitch, or use your sewing machine to stitch here with a long stitch length. If you are using your sewing machine, you will want to lengthen your stitch length here so that you can still stretch your bodice without your top stitch popping. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you guys right back here at the mat. Okay, as you can see, now that we have our top stitch done, our band is laying down a lot nicer than it was before. This is an optional step, but it does just give it that little bit something extra. Our next step is going to be to attach our sleeves. And since we are using the flutter sleeves with this bodice, what we're going to do first is we are going to gather our flutter sleeves, because what we're going to do when we attach the sleeves is we're going to be sandwiching our flutter sleeve in between the bodice and our sleeve as we're attaching it. So we need to go ahead and gather those up first. So I'm gonna move this out of the way and show you the flutter sleeves. There are, I'll delay this like this, that's okay. All right, so once your flutter sleeve is unfolded, you've got one long straight edge, line it up. You've got one long straight edge, and then you have a curved edge. You are going to gather the straight edge, and the curved edge stays to the outside. You can hem this, you can leave this raw, you can put a rolled hem on it, whatever your heart desires. For this video, I'm gonna leave mine raw. And with knit fabric, you can, leave this raw because knit fabric doesn't fray. So I made sure that it was cut super nice, and I'm gonna leave mine raw. I am not gonna gather on the video. I have a couple of videos on my blog, and I'm going to put the links to those on in the comments of this video that you can check out. There's so many ways to gather, and everybody does it a little bit differently. You can gather with your sewing machine using a lengthened straight stitch where you pull the bobbin. I have a video on that. You can do it zigzagging. So where you have a long thread here, and then you zigzag over the thread, and then you gather by holding the thread on one end and just scooting along your zigzags. And you can gather also on your serger. I'm going to gather on my serger. I have a video on pulling the bobbin thread, and I have a video on using your serger to gather. Now, everyone who gathers on their serger, the settings are a little bit differently, so make sure that you practice on some scrap fabric. But I'm gonna go ahead and gather these up using my serger, and I'll come right back here. Okay, so I gathered up our ruffles, our flutter sleeves, whatever you wanna call them, on the serger. I always leave a little bit of a tail because you never know if they're going to over gather, or if your serger, depending on the type of fabric that you've got in there, if it's a little bit thicker, it won't gather as tight as it normally does on thinner fabric. So I leave a little bit of a tail so that I can either loosen this up, or I can grab the needle threads in my tail here and pull it a little tighter if I need to too. So let's go ahead and attach these and our sleeves to our bodice. I'm gonna set these aside when I move this right back over here. And I will tell you guys, I am following all the directions today. I'm doing everything by the book, the way that it's supposed to be done. I do normally attach my sleeves in the round, so forgive me if I use the wrong terminology here as I am clipping and attaching these sleeves. Let me grab a few more pins, because when you do it this way, you need all the pins. Grab a few more of these and we will get started. So the first thing that we need to do is, well, first I need to find my scissors. Okay, the first thing that we're gonna need to do is mark the midway point on both of our sleeves. To do that, we'll mark it just like we did the center of our bodice and the neckband. We'll do that by folding this together and making a little snip right here to mark the center. And this little snip is going to line up with our shoulder seam here. Okay. And we'll do the same thing with this one, just to move our scissors out of the way. And then we're gonna pin one sleeve at a time. All right. Perfect. I'm gonna set that sleeve out of the way, and we are going to also pin down our flutter sleeve, our ruffle. Okay, so let's not get tricked here, because we have right sides together for our bodice and our sleeve, but there's only one right side for our ruffles, so we want to make sure that we put them down the right way. And what you want to think about is that when this is sewn together, your ruffle is going to be on top of your sleeve like this. So you want to match the ruffle right side with the bodice right side. And then you will have the wrong side of the ruffle will be matched with the right side of your sleeve. Hope that makes sense. All right, I'm gonna scoop my sleeve back and find the middle of my ruffle. Here. I just folded this in half. We might have to loosen this just a little bit. I'm gonna fold this in half, and I'm gonna use a clip here first, just to make sure that we have enough to go all the way around. looks good. And the same here. And we are just matching up our ruffle with the armscye. So this one looks good as well. So now we're ready to start pinning our sleeve down. I like to start right in the middle. So I'm gonna find this clipped, our little snipped point, which is the middle of our sleeve. And I am going to sandwich that in, and then we're just gonna slowly but surely line this up. And as we have these straight lines, we are just gonna put a pin in here to line this up. And we're just gonna inch our way down to have a straight sleeve. Now, I mentioned this earlier, I normally sew my sleeves on in the round. If you are interested in learning how to sew on sleeves in the round, I did show sewing sleeves on in the round in my Augusta tutorial. So if you want to see what that looks like, go ahead and check out the Augusta tutorial. I find that it's easier, but it's not for everyone. We got a little extra here, so we might have to stretch just a little bit. Keeping this straight. All right. So you'll see as we sew this on, this is gonna flatten out. Perfect. So now let's get the rest of this side done, and I will attach this other side and we'll sew these on. So we're just going to take all three of these raw edges and just line them up as we go. This is also officially the most pins that I have ever used on a project. So I hope you guys find that endearing. Sometimes I don't know how some of my stuff turns out straight because I either don't want to take the time, because this does take time. I mean, obviously this is taking much longer than it would if I had just popped one wonder clip here and hopped over to my sewing machine and let it ride. This is taking more time, but you do sometimes end up with a more polished result if you do take the time to pin everything down. And that's just really a matter of preference on how polished you like your final project to be. And it looks like I am out of pins, so I will put a clip on the edge here. All right, so as we sew this on, oops. The cotton on the liker is rolling on me. All right, I got it all there. As we sew this on, I might need to adjust this just a hair. Perfect. As we sew this on, we will just be removing these pins as we go. All right. All right, now I am gonna go ahead and pin the other side, and I will sew both of these on. Okay, starting with the side that you guys watched me pin, I am going to start all the way in the corner, and I'm going to sew all the way along this raw edge. And remember, we are catching all three of our seams together: the bodice, the ruffle, and our sleeve. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, you guys, we're at the home stretch here. Now that we have sewn our sleeves on, which if you were paying close attention there, you will notice that I did not really pin the second sleeve. I just winged it. It did turn out just fine. So what we need to do is close up our sleeves and bodice, and we'll be all done aside from hemming our sleeves. All right, so what we're gonna do to close this up is we are going to line up the side. Okay, sorry, I wanted to make sure you could see the whole thing. I need to scoot this, there we go. Okay, so what we wanna do here is we wanna line up the side seams. The crossback stretches all the way across, and the side seams line up. All right, and I'll put a little clip here to hold those together. All right, then we're gonna flip this over and match these up with our front side seams. So we're gonna line this up. So most of this, most of the side seam is going to have 3 raw edges. The edge, as you get up to the armpit, you'll be done sewing through the cross, the one side, the shorter side of the cross back piece. But we want to clip all 3 of these together here and do the same thing on this side. So we'll line up all of these raw edges, and you'll notice that on one side, the cross back is going to be on the outside, and on the opposite side, it's going to be sandwiched in between the back and the front of the bodice. So on this side, you can see the cross back is on the outside, and on this side, it's sandwiched in between here. All right, then we just want to take this and line up all right, so then we just want to take this and line up our seams here. Now what I like to do is make sure that the seams for the sleeve are facing down. And you can put another clip in this here if you wish to hold those down. And then we will start right at the bottom of our sleeve. So what we're doing on both sides is sewing this curve from the sleeve to the bottom of our bodice. And we will repeat that on both sides. Okay, so all we're doing here is serging down this curved line, starting with the raw edges of the sleeve, the side edge, not the hole, okay? This hole has to be open. This is where your arm's gonna go through. We're gonna start here and serge right down. We wanna make sure that, especially when you're serging through the armpit, that you catch the full seam allowance under both of your needles. Whoops. The full seam allowance under both of your needles, because that is a place where you could get a pop stitch if you happen to not catch the whole thing, both raw edges under both needles, because that's a place of heavy stretch there. And you've got a lot of tails here. You want to make sure that all of those are hanging out to the right so that they are caught by your knife and not caught up in your seam. But I want to make sure that I point out that as you start serging here, you want to make sure that you're catching the full seam allowance in the armpit area, the full seam allowance of both the top and the bottom underneath your two needles, because that's a place of heavy stretch there. And then as you go down a little bit further right here to sew the bodice closed, you want to make sure, just double check that you're catching all 3 layers, because you do have 3 layers now. You want to make sure that you're catching all 3 layers. All right, now that we've got them all lined up, let's go. I did have to trim off just this teeny little bit here. My band didn't go quite to the edge here, and I wanted to make sure that my band that was at the top of my crossback was caught in the full seam allowance. So I did trim a little bit of that off. All right, so when you flip that right side out, that's what it's gonna look like. Let me get the sleeve out of here too. There you go. So cute. All right, I'm gonna do the other side. All right, here's what we've got. We have sewn our sleeve sides down. I'm gonna turn this, I'm gonna show you guys what this looks like right side out. And the only thing we have left to do is hem our sleeves, which I am not going to show on the video. I am gonna use my cover stitch to hem my sleeves. Everyone's cover stitch might be a little bit differently. If you want to use your sewing machine, you can do that to hem your sleeves. All right, so that's what, cute ruffles. This is what it looks like when it is all finished. All we need to do is hem our sleeves. So I'm gonna use my cover stitch. You can do a rolled hem on your sleeve, a lettuce hem using your serger if you don't have a cover stitch and you want to do that. That is such a quick and cute way to finish your sleeves. Or you can use a cover stitch to fold and hem. Or if you are using your sewing machine, you can fold these and you can just do a little zigzag all the way around to hem your sleeves. All right, I'm gonna hem mine and then we'll look at what it looks like to be all done. All right, so this is what our bodice looks like with the sleeves finished and hemmed. Now all that is left to do is attach our bodice to the bottom of our magnolia. So I am going to set this aside until we are ready for it.